Welcome to Season 2 of Let's Break Up, Toxic Workplace Stories. Join hosts Nicola and Gina as they tackle workplace toxicity head-on. Real-life stories, well-being, and standing against toxicity await you. Let's break up with toxic workplaces and create a revolution of positivity together.
As a disclaimer, Nicola and Gina's opinions are solely their own and don't represent professional advice. It's just their perspective, so form your own conclusions. Heads up, this podcast may contain adult content and explicit language. So let's dive in and break up with toxic workplaces.
Yeah.
All right. So, Felicia, you're going to talk to us about
So many cool things.
Yes. Tell us a little bit about who you are, where you're coming from, and anything you want our listeners to know about you.
Sure. So I am the founder and fractional CPO at CPO Playbook. We are a strategic leadership and HR consultancy. And we also have a podcast that we recently launched. So that's very exciting. I have a master's in industrial organizational psychology. And basically what that is, it's the psychology of the workplace. And so a lot of the work that I do really has to do with people and how to make them successful and how to make teams successful. And, you know, a lot of it is also what not to do and how that could impede on culture. And so, yeah, so then we're talking about MLMs today, which is a good segue.
Is a good segue of what not to do.
Yeah, what not to do. Yeah, I mean, I think it's really interesting because MLMs, they do a lot of similar things that, you know, we as like HR and leadership coaches, if you will, tell leaders to do in the sense of, hey, this is how we engage people. Because I think MLMs, for example, they're very good at this. And we tell, you know, or we create programs of how do we get people engaged. But I think the major difference with an MLM is that the type of work that they do is corrosive to someone's self-confidence, their financial well-being. They do all of those things that a normal organization would do, but they do it in a way that causes moral dilemmas and harm to people. So there's some differences. But we can get into that whenever.
Okay. So, yeah, can you give us examples of what you just meant? Because a lot of the times people will, like, we had someone come on here about who's like a communication coach, and they're saying a lot of the things that we tell our students, for lack of a better word, are the same things that when put in the hands of a toxic person can be used to be manipulative. So it's like, it's such a subtle, slight difference. So, and I can't remember, did Lauren give us an example? I think she did, but I would like to hear the example in regards to specifically MLMs, which are a little culty. So can you give us an example?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many. But I think first and foremost, there's the structure of an MLM. So in normal, healthy organizations, people are mostly employees, or they're contracting for like specific type of work and specialties, or consulting, things like that. In an MLM, you're not an employee. You're a contractor. You're actually, some people will set up their own LLC. They're a distributor. Mm-hmm. And so what that really means is that technically the relationship is very different. So if I am someone that's a distributor and I set up my own LLC and I become a distributor of an MLM's product, then I am also the product of the product, where I'm a buyer of the product that they're selling. So I'm actually not just a seller, I'm also a buyer. And then all of that financial responsibility is actually on my own. So I either can make money or I can severely fail in my environment of selling that product. And so I think that from an organization that's like an MLM, they're touting, hey, this is so great, this is amazing, the product's amazing, but we're not going to have any financial responsibility on what you sell or what you don't sell. We're just going to help you buy more product, and then, it's up to you to sell it. And so that kind of relationship is really, really different. And I think sometimes people can get caught up because here's this organization and they're hyping them up and they're singing positivity and financial freedom. And that becomes really toxic because, number one, if anybody is promising financial freedom, that's a huge red flag, especially when they have no control over what you sell and what you don't sell. So that in itself is, I think, just one example of that I would share that is a really big red flag, and you should be thinking about what that means when you're hearing the promises of financial freedom. And this is, the gateway to your life, especially when you're being thrown, pictures and images of your friends and colleagues and people who are really close to you, and they're having, pictures of their new cars and their new bags and, everything that they've received. And that actually comes from not just selling product, but recruiting people to purchase the product. Like, I would be recruited and that person would get money from me because I'm purchasing the product, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. No, it does. I mean, so my company, we used to do a lot of work with this company that seems like it's an MLM. I'm not sure. It's called Jafra. They're out of California. And they're targeted to like the Hispanic community. And we did so much work with them for like incentives and stuff. So like they would incentivize their distributors, and then they would get like a specialty bag or, like a specialty, I don't know, something or other. And now all of a sudden they got bought out by somebody and all those incentives are going away. So I don't know, like, if that means that they're going to be more traditional, or if they're, if the MLM thing isn't quite working. Just something interesting that I've noticed. It doesn't necessarily relate to anything. But the people at the corporate, I was working with the corporate people, so they actually were employees of the brand, right? But the people who were getting the incentives were just people like you and me who had been recruited. And I just think it's hilarious because like the people at the corporate center like thought that their brand was like the coolest thing on the planet, and it's like dated, and most MLM stuff is not that cool, like in my opinion. But yeah, anyway, I digress. So
what
do you have any
what is the psychological kind of hook? What is the hook that gets us into this cult? Because I want to kind of circle back into that hook, because I want to tie it into how do we get hooked into these corporate environments that are similar to MLMs, right? Where they're hooking you in and it's culty in the work environment as well. And there's kind of this correlation between the two, I guess. So I'm curious to know what this hook is that gets people so kind of caught up in this.
So there's so many tactics. And again, I think there's various ranges of how often or how deep these psychological tactics could be. But I can kind of walk you through some of them. So one of them is a very charismatic persona from authority. This authority figure who is very charismatic, and they essentially make you feel like you're the only person in the room. And again, varying, degrees of this, but I think that sometimes cult leaders, like some MLM leaders, might see similarities, where they see similarities is having this feeling of charisma in a very isolated way, where they gain your trust very easily. And then they kind of say, if you start having doubts or if you start questioning, they come to you and say, that's very negative. You shouldn't think that way. And, your mother, your father, your friend, your sister, they're doubting you. You shouldn't be around those people. And so they kind of bring in this sense of belonging, this very strong sense of belonging, where I've got your back. This is a positive space. We're here to support you. And again, I think organizations, should be having this positive mentality, but it's not to the point where you shouldn't think any other way. And I think that's kind of where diversity and equity and inclusion comes into play, where a more diverse workforce and a more diverse set of people or employees and leadership really hone in on finding these diverse aspects in order to make good decisions. Mm-hmm. But MLMs, cult-like leaders will do quite the opposite. And they'll
you also mentioned you shouldn't hang around with these people. So then it crosses that life work sort of boundary. It's okay, you mentioned your mom thinks that it's a bad idea, so maybe you don't want to be hearing that, so maybe limit your time with her. And it's why do you get to tell me what to do with my free time? Mm-hmm. That's weird, which reminds me of the whole Lizzo debacle, Nicola. Toxic workplaces tend to kind of, which I'm thinking is starting to be another trait, is they tell you what to do with your free time. What and how to do things on your free time, which is what
especially in an organization where your downtime is with the people you work with in certain environments, right? Mm-hmm. Do you remember when we had Debs on the episode where she was working when they're
right, and, or an oil rig or something like that? It's
and where it was
living with your coworkers,
where I called it Love Island Mining Edition.
Yeah.
Because you're getting sex workers into this community because they're stuck there for months on end. It's
so it's just blur. It's you wouldn't normally do that if you went to the office, right? You wouldn't order a sex worker to come to your office, right? But because you're living in the same with your coworkers, it's very difficult, right? Where do you get to have your own free time? So if it's not illegal in the country that they're in, who are we to say what to do on their free time? And this is just something that I've been noticing in this season of interviews that has become sort of a hot button topic. But yeah, so also the charismatic leader, right? And they make you feel you're the only one in the room, and you aspire to be like them, or they have such a cool backstory or some nonsense like that. And it's everyone has a story, right? Everyone has a backstory.
It's just how you PR tell your backstory.
Right. Right. Yep. Yeah. Okay, so what else kind of, and what goes into, I feel also there has to be a certain sort of on the receiving end, let's say you're being recruited. If I was going to be recruited to an MLM, I'd be get out of here. I have no desire. Next, go somewhere, go home. Don't bother me. But I feel there are certain.
How are smart people getting sucked into?
Yes. This? How are they because the girl who we are going to interview, I think she's gone on to write a book and has become an expert in certain things. So it's she's not. There's no way she's living under a rock and doesn't hear about these things. So how do people, especially in this day and age when you have documentaries about LuLaRoe and Gwen Shamblin and all those, and you're right? How are people still getting sucked in?
Yeah. So a couple things. One of them is financially. So there's some people who do, have some success in this environment. And let's say, for example, they say, oh, we want you to have a car. A lot of MLMs will say, hey, let's give you a car and you can show it off. And so, but what that really means in the background, and I'm not saying that every MLM will do this, but an example is they'll say, hey, you buy the car, and then we will give, we'll give you like $500 a month for the car, but you have to purchase, over $1,000 of product from us a month. And then it's your responsibility to sell that product. So in order to keep this car and you're sucked into this lease, you have to keep going unless, things are you're going to be in debt. So there's this, financial kind of handcuffing that they create around compensation. It's not really a compensation. It's, you're not an employee, but you're still getting compensated for being a distributor based on what you sell. So it's a little bit behind the scenes. And so people kind of just get stuck in this place where they might see things that are not so kosher, but they continue because they know, hey, if I stop now, I'm going to be in a bad place. So that's one thing that happens. Mm-hmm. Another piece is that they have a lot of their social relationships that are baked into the environment. So if I'm new and, I'm being told, go recruit people and you're going to make more money as you get more recruitees, I'm going to call my sister, my mom, my friends, my best friends, whoever, my aunts, my uncles, and I'm going to bring them into this environment. And those are the relationships that I have that are the most strong. And if I see something going wrong or not so great, and I end up leaving, they're going to point the finger at me. They're going to say, you're being negative. You're not being supportive. And that's kind of this like almost shame that gets put on people who leave, and especially from the relationships that are the strongest in your life. Many people are not going to take that risk to leave an environment where that's all of their, social support comes from. So that's another place, which is really, really difficult to do.
Yeah, because you feel like you're going to let everyone down. But like, what specifically, how do people get recruited if, like in the example, like you said, okay, if I have to go sell these products, I'm going to call my sister and my best friends and my whole extended family. But what kind of do you find that people who are more in a vulnerable situation, for whatever reason, whether it's loss of job or going through they're the ones who are recruited, and then they're the ones who will go and talk to all of their family and then kind of get sucked in? Like, what are the set of qualities that someone tends to have that does ultimately get recruited by an MLM?
I think that there are some people who are more vulnerable than others. And these are people who maybe I've tried this and that, it didn't work. Maybe there's some ping of desperation I just lost my job. This is an easy way for me to start making money, maybe at least until I find my next job. And then they end up getting wrapped up in everything that environment brings, and they stay. And also people who are mostly in debt, unfortunately, because that promise of financial freedom is very attractive to someone who has had a lot of debt build up, and they're seeing how, it works. All my friends, they're, making so much money, and I want that too. Or, they see pictures or whatever on social media. I want that too. Well, it's not a bad thing to want. I mean, everybody wants to be able to have that financial stability, but when you have the debt, or when you don't have a social circle, or when you're, struggling, or you're in a transition, or you're not really sure where you are socially in your life, and here's everything really being offered to you on a silver platter of promise, I think that for sure people are going to say, why not take a chance on this interesting new adventure that's going to bring me parties and excitement and and the ability to kind of run my own business. So for sure, I think that there are people who are more vulnerable than others to kind of get sucked in as a recruitee.
Yeah. Because this other girl that we briefly spoke to, she said that she was going through like an emotionally and socially tough time. And that's when she got involved with the MLM. And then before she knew it, it kind of like took over her whole life. So it's going to be really interesting. Yeah. But she's gotten out of it.
But I think about, I think about that promise. And, again, like, are we living under the rocks at the moment? Because you see all over that those promises aren't necessarily true, and that you've got to obviously sell, buy, sell, buy, to even make a dent. And I think, there's so much data around how little, you're making. So, I know, and I used to have a flatmate who used to do an MLM, and I was just like, how are you being sucked? Like, how is this happening? Because she was fully subscribed to it, and it was all about, getting the newest edition of this thing. And
well, if she was doing that well, she wouldn't need help buying things, and she wouldn't need a flatmate, right? Because that's the promise that they give you, is that you're going to make so much money. And I do think there are it's like a unicorn in some MLMs that these people can really make money. Can you explain that phenomenon?
Yeah, I think that there's, there's some people who have great talent. They're great sellers. Most of the people who make it to the top really believe in the product. They've used the product. They're like, this product helped me, do X, Y, and Z, do this to my skin, lose weight. And I am bought in. And if I can do it, you can do it. And that's kind of their pitch. And I think some of the products can be good. I think it's maybe not. I've honestly never tried a product before, so I really can't say. But even if the product was good, that's really not the goal of the organization that's making you purchase it. The goal is to recruit as many people as it's a numbers game. It's you recruit 100 people, great, 1% makes it, because they're just naturally talented sellers, and they believe in the product, and their pitches are great, and they have a good network, or or they're motivated, or whatever the case may be. But at the end of the day, like I said, it's a numbers game. So they're making money off of that 99% of recruitees, regardless of whether or not they're making money.
But then you've got that numbers game in a small community, let's say. Now you've tapped out your family, your whole family. Let's say you recruit your sister, okay? Now you've got the same circle of friends. You've recruited some people out of your circle of friends who are also happen to be living under rocks. And by the end of it, you have recruited half your town, and now you are tapped out. Like, there's no more room for you to grow, because you have literally tapped out on your community.
Wait, can I answer that? So, like, my mom is actually a distributor of an MLM, and she has been since before I was born, and I'm going to be 44. So it's like, you just, like, I grew up surrounded by MLMs. Her MLM is slightly different because they don't do parties. They don't do, it's a little bit different, and they're selling like vitamins. So it's not so much like just a quick buy and like you have to buy all these things. Like, it's like you take them, if they work, you continue to buy it. So it might be slightly better than other MLMs, but the fact is it's still an MLM. So what her MLM offers is, if she, because there is the element of recruiting, signing people up, getting them to buy, like, even if like doing a monthly, X amount of money every month. So what they do is, if someone's in her, I'm probably going to say this wrong because I don't really pay attention, but if she recruits someone and that person sells to someone else, she gets part of the other person's like profit, kind of. So there's like an incentive. So it's like, she might have, she's older now, so she's done recruiting. She's just working on what she has. But like, if one of her recruits then recruits someone, she still gets some type of credit for that. So I think that's how probably most MLMs work. It's like you recruit someone, then you get on their ass about recruiting more people because it only helps. It's called like the upline or something. It helps
but then
the
you run out of
upline.
people to tap into. Like you've got to
No,
eventually.
but you don't have to tap into anyone else because like it's you, right? That's why it's a pyramid scheme. You recruited these people, and then they're recruiting all these people below them, and you're still getting something from all the people down here.
No, I understand the concept. It's just when you're in a small community, you're gonna run out of people to recruit,
right? Which is when your downline works for you. Yeah.
Well,
I mean, that's what they sell, right? That's the promise they sell. It might not always be the case, though.
Yeah. Yes. And like, again, going back to, there's different degrees of all of these things and the way they pay and the way they act or what they do. And again, like there's 1% who do really, really well, but this continuation of just, the focus is not the product. I think that's kind of the biggest difference. The focus is not the product. The focus is the product at an MLM is recruit. Get more people to buy your stuff, to be distributors. More distributors, more buyers, more money. That is like the major message.
Right. So I think there's more regulations and correct me if I'm wrong, Felicia, with an MLM, it's kind of just like you buy our product, you buy into our idea, and it's up to you to figure out how well you do. There's no regulations. Like I've heard people, just because I listen to a lot of like cult and true crime podcasts, like they'll buy like all of their inventory like upfront for the year and then never sell any of it and be stuck with all of that, because they're too afraid to not reach the quota. Like I've heard these horror stories. So I think it's
terrible.
Yeah, it's a completely different model because you have to hold the inventory and then distribute it. Am I wrong, Felicia?
No, I don't think you're wrong. I think that's probably a lot of people's experience, and it's very unfortunate. I mean, I think there's going to be some people who do have that product and they're like, that's it. This is coming out of my house tomorrow. And they're going to do whatever it takes. And maybe they will make it. There's still those stories, but they are very far and few between. And like, again, it's a numbers game. Buy as much product today, you get 10% off. And they're telling that to hundreds of people or thousands, however many distributors that they have. And they're making their money. They don't need to care about how much money you make. They just need to tell you, if you don't make the money, you're not doing a good job. If you don't make the money, you're not putting in the effort. If you don't make the money, that's your problem. If you don't make the money, you're not taking enough pictures about how well you're doing. You're not recruiting fast enough. Like it's just very uncomfortable. And I think that if people out there who are listening and they're wondering or they have thoughts about, the company that they're distributing for, that maybe they might be in an MLM, if something doesn't feel right, you're probably right. It's just go with your gut type of thing. If there's some like moral that you feel is breaking or it's a little soft in the environment that you're in, like go with your gut. I think if you want to find financial freedom, if that's really like on your mind, you have to really identify your strengths, be in a place where you don't feel like your morals and values are being sliced in half. And then you can dive in and you have like a base salary that maybe you have, but and not to say that people can't start their own company, but to have your own company and fully depend on one organization who the majority of what they're telling you is you need to sell our product and they're not giving you anything else or any other support. It just so rubs me the wrong way. It's like, it hurts my soul, like I want people to be happy with what they're doing. And most people are happy in their role if they love what they're doing even whether or not they make that financial gain, because they can still go home and be super happy with like, hey, I helped someone today, or hey, I like made this product and I love making this product, but at the end of the day, if you're like constantly questioning yourself whether or not something was like, done in a good way, I think you should dig into what that means for you, in your world.
Yeah. So I think this is where Nicola and I are probably like, we love a good MLM/cult story. Like, we love it.
Have you been watching How to Be a Cult Leader?
No, not yet. I need to.
I have. I will see that.
I was like, I'm addicted.
So huh?
I'm addicted. It's wild.
Wait, it's on Netflix, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna have to get on that. Currently, I'm going down a Married at First Sight rabbit hole.
Thank you, Jesus, for finally coming to the party.
I know. I finally am coming around. She's
where are you
to
at?
watch it for like ages, and I'm like, I'm gonna get around to it.
Overview of where you're at.
No, I'm watching the US version.
I'm aware. I have watched all of them. Where are you at?
I started with the most recent season, 15.
Oh, okay. Oh, there's just such good people before this.
I'm good. Now that I was like, let me give it a shot. Nicholas told me to do it this whole time. So I just started with the most recent season. And now that I'm into it, I'm going to go all the way back because there's 15 seasons.
Girl,
ready for me to binge.
I will see you next year.
Okay. Anyway, so where Nicola and I, like, despite loving good MLM/cult stories, how do regular non-MLM companies like an S Corp, not doing distribution like how the MLMs are set up, not promoting necessarily recruiting, how does a regular company start exhibiting similar characteristics? Because you said like on one side is MLM/cult, the other side is a healthy company, and in the middle is a spectrum. And I think Nicola and I are most interested in that the company.
How do we get sucked into the family cult?
Yeah, how do you get sucked into a company that is very similar in terms of behavior, picking up on people's insecurities like an MLM does, without even realizing that you're getting sucked in?
I think that a lot of it has to do with kind of what we talked about earlier, which was my goal is financial freedom. My goal is to get out of whatever rut I'm in, those people who are a little bit more vulnerable, and just seeing like a light at the end of the tunnel. And so when we do that as people, we're like, we're going towards my goal. I'm gonna, I see some things like that's not so great, but I'm on my way to my goal. So I'm going to keep going. I think that there's a very strong desire for whatever it is that somebody is looking for. And, these MLM leaders, they're providing a lot of those solutions. They're promising financial freedom. They're showing you it exists because they're, showing you pictures and bringing people on stage and saying, you have done so amazing. And look what you can be doing. You can be successful and you can have, your own business and you can own your future. Look at all these people who are successful, who are doing the same thing. They create this like groupthink mentality. Again, that next step of like isolation, right? Now it's like, I pulled you in and now I'm going to surround you with like-minded people. If you do a psychological assessment and it's called groupthink, you do a psychological assessment and you put people in a room to discuss something. Let's say there's 10 people. You have like group A, who they pick one person who's like the participant, and then they surround them with like, I don't know, 9 other people. And they tell those 9 other people behind the scenes, they go, we want you to all agree with each other. Okay. And then they do group B, which is they have another participant and they have these 9 people and they say, well, we want you to publicly disagree with each other and like have the soft, good environment with disagreeing. Well, in this like MLM environment, you're being put in this place with all of these people who think the same way. Like there's been studies where I mean, don't quote me, but like, for example, if you pass like a cheeseburger around and everybody takes a bite and they go, oh, I love this cheeseburger. It's so good. This is the greatest cheeseburger I've ever had. And then you taste it, and it's like the most disgusting thing you've ever tasted. You will still agree that it's the most amazing cheeseburger you've ever had, because it's groupthink mentality. It's you don't want to be something must be wrong with you if you don't agree. Everyone else says the same thing. Why would you think anything different? And so they it's like they encompass you and they isolate you in this like-minded with these like-minded people. They show you all this social proof of success and relationships and making money and all of these things, and I'm the authority figure, and I'm saying you have something special. You could make it really big. You just need to put in the effort. You need to keep going. This is only a hump that you're going through. Everybody goes through it. You got to keep, it's it's just like gambling. It's like, I'm in more debt. I got to try harder. I'm in more debt. It's because I'm not trying hard. It's like this cyclical, socially, psychological mind. I don't want to say the word, but like, you know what I'm saying? Yes, I'll let you say it. So I just think that it's you get into this world and they kind of lock you in, and then you cannot get out. Because
I think that is so true.
Yeah.
That's what happened with us, Nicola, in our workplace, because
they weren't an MLM, just to be clear. They were just a standard organization.
It was not an MLM. It was not structured like that. It was structured like a normal company,
business.
CEO, COO. Yeah. Nothing. We weren't being told to recruit. There was nothing like that. But
it was the groupthink.
It was the groupthink. It was like,
we make the best product. If you don't believe us, get bent.
And like when I first got hired, I was hired to fix a lot of issues there. And so I started doing that. And in doing so, I started asking hard questions and being disagreeable, but in a professional manner. I wasn't like, this product sucks. I was like, okay, we can improve it by doing X, Y, and Z, whatever. And over time, because either I was then told later, like, oh, so-and-so didn't like that you said that, or Nicola, you have tons of stories similarly. I stopped participating. It wasn't that I would agree. I would just stop levying, like I would just, no opinion, nothing. If that's what this company wants to do, fine, I'll just get it done for them. So it was like almost like a demoralization of my
Their groupthink was very much centered around toxic positivity.
Yes, and inexperience. So they would like co-sign people's thoughts and ideas that made no business sense. So it was that groupthink. I think you hit the nail right in the head, especially in our case. It was
groupthink
like
and isolation, because you think about the hours we worked and the capacity that we had to be available in. So you're completely isolated from family and friends because you just don't have time to see those people. So you're isolated to this group of people you're talking to remotely on Slack, and then on top of that, layer upon layer, you've now got the toxic positivity and you've got the groupthink mentality, and you've got your vivacious cult leader telling you, but we can do better, and if we don't, we're going to have to let people go because we just have to keep doing better, and whatever it is.
It's all the same. It's exactly what you were just saying.
It's exactly the same.
It's exactly what you were saying, Felicia, because it's like, oh, this is just a road bump. Don't worry. We're going to get better.
Yeah, that's all very like superficial stuff. I think the way, like I've seen organizations where they have like an all hands meeting, and the CEO would come, such an idiot. The CEO would come to an all hands meeting and he would not answer any questions. And I'm like, why are you such a
prick?
Yeah, you say.
Insert word. You can curse on this podcast. Why are you such a fucking asshole? Yeah. Okay.
You're the CEO. That's your responsibility, is to answer questions that your employees have. And like he would like defer it to like the head of HR at the time, or like the CFO or whoever. And like, they just looked like they were just a bunch of chumps answering his question. Like everybody could see through. And I'm like, if you are a leader, especially the CEO, and you can't answer hard questions, you are putting blinders, not just on yourself, but on your employees. And that doesn't help anybody. And by the way, that company went through 2 layoffs in 6 months. Okay. And it drives me absolutely insane, because I'm like, if you have a problem, every organization, they have challenges, period. You can be Apple, you can be whatever, you have challenges. The best leaders who I have seen, they go to an all hands and they go, here's what we're doing well. Here's where we're, really not doing well. What are we going to do about it? Let's solve this together. Here's our plan. What do you think? It's a constant discussion of, I want to hear your ideas. I want you to speak up, come to the table, tell me something I don't know. What's your perspective? What am I not seeing? It's 90% of the conversation leaders are having. It's not about this like 10% of conversation of like, here's what we're doing, and we're just gonna, hop, skip, and a jump over this, period. And it's so that conversation is maybe 10%, and you need that. You still need that conversation to get people to say, this is the road we're on. We're doing really well. You have to have those conversations. But most of the time, the 90 other percent of the conversation should be, here are the challenges. Here's what we're doing. Tell me what else we can be doing to solve these problems. And that is what makes companies thrive and be successful and grow. I mean, it ekes me. Like I can't, when I see these, and it's funny because the time I had told the head of HR at the time, and I told her, I said, don't you think you need to, coach him a little bit and let him know? Because she and I were on the same page. She's like, he's not coachable. And I said, well, when a CEO is not coachable, what does that mean? You let him go. You figure it out. You replace that person, because if a CEO can't be coached, what makes you think any other leader can be coached in your organization? And lo and behold, like he was eventually let go. I mean, I just saw it like from miles away. And I think I can just see, even from like one all hands, I'm like, oh, that's a problem. Yeah, things need to change. So, I mean, I don't mean to like go on a rant here, but these are real things, and they can be in real organizations. You just got to kind of look at those red flags. Yeah.
What do you feel like let's say, what would the top 3 red flags for you be if you want to avoid a cult-like organization?
Workplace. Yeah.
So I think we talked about groupthink a lot, right? I mean, if a company is telling you that the only place for you in the world is here, and you can't go and sell other products, but we're not going to take any financial responsibility over what you sell and what you do, like, that's a huge red flag. Huge red flag. I think the other thing is false promises. So if a company is telling you that you're going to reach your fullest potential, and you're going to be amazing, financial freedom, this is it, this is the only place for you to be, like that, huge red flag. I think another one is a company that talks a lot about, or maybe I should say this, that doesn't talk enough about the product and the science behind the product and what it's used for. It's a company needs to educate distributors about the product. A company shouldn't be saying, go find more people to purchase from you. Doesn't matter how you do it. Just go get them to buy from you, and then you will be, you'll be the winner. I think that is a huge, huge issue. Companies or manufacturers of products, essentially, which is what they are, should not, be telling people or focused on just go sell. It should be, here's what the product is, and here's how you can here's the knowledge we can give you about the product to help you sell the product. And then another one is like, not allowing you as your own, consultant or 1099, or making you feel guilty or shameful for going out and doing more business elsewhere, like that's a huge red flag. So I think those are some big ones.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, but what about like in a regular organization where, like the one that Nicola and I came from, like we weren't told to go, distribute the product because it was direct to consumer via e-commerce.
Sure. But it was sell. Like that
and
was
that was more for like the marketing aspect, and there was no really rhyme or reason to their products. And we were just told we're going to be the best, we're the best, how do we get there? But then like when faced with harsh truths, like, okay, you're not going to make this revenue because your timeline is severely unmanageable, like nothing is being done in a proper manner, not accepting reality and having like that charismatic leader. That's where we came from. That's where Nicola and I met. And when we left, we felt like we were actually, especially Nicola, I was a little bit less into the cult. Like I was only there for like maybe 4 months. Nicola was there for like 4 years. So it's, I noticed it sooner than Nicola because she was already part of that group
in
thing.
the interviews as well. You saw the red flags in the interviews.
But I dismissed them. I saw them and then I dismissed them. I'm like, oh, they're a small company. They probably don't have the same, like they need someone like me because I am very experienced in what I was hired for. I knew what I was doing.
And
so,
Gina, I just want to take a second to validate that for you.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
we all go into an organization thinking we're here to help. Like we want, I see the mistakes, I can help you. And I think that that's just coming from a place of like wanting to be like a good contributor to a company. So,
Yeah.
I don't want to invalidate like how you were feeling, during that process.
There was once I got fired after I quit, it's my favorite story. And then they gave me severance, dummies. They never had to because I technically quit. Anyway, so
go back to episodes like 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, so I did leave that company when I did get fired and felt really shitty about myself. I'm like, maybe I'm not good at my job. Thankfully, the bounce back was not as bad as Nicola's because I was only there for a short period of time. And then I was like, no, I know what I'm doing. This was not a right fit. This company was not willing to see the truth. So, and if anyone could have righted that ship, it would have been me because I have so much experience doing what I do, or someone like me. So how do you find the red flags? Because my point in kind of going back to go forward is that when both Nicola and I left and we got back together, we were like, was that a cult? Like it felt very MLM-y / culty. And I think that's where, again, Nicola and I love a good MLM cult story. Love it. I would love more documentaries about it, about new ones that we haven't heard of. But how do you get like sucked into these companies that are very cult-like or MLM-like without actually being an MLM? And what are those red flags? Because I think there's a lot of smaller companies, and I'm sure there's even big Fortune 500 companies that have similar characteristics that what me and Nicola felt or went through. So I think that's where my main interest is.
A couple things. I think one of them is if you're in a company and diversity of thought is not being promoted, or it's making people feel shameful or guilty, that's a big red flag. And I think that's one of the reasons why, I talked about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and why that's such a big thing right now, and why I even talk about a lot of it on my podcast. But my point is that people are starting to really realize what that looks like. And again, it's about, I've gotten into conversations where leaders, like we're in like a private conversation and I'm with like the executive team and they're like down, like they're like making fun of people who who said something in a meeting that was like, oh, did you hear what that person said? That's nothing like, I mean, it was like beyond what my ears could hear, because I just thought it doesn't matter if somebody brings up something that you don't like, or maybe they were completely off. The fact that they brought it up, you should be excited about that, because that brings innovation and ideas to the table, and it allows people to see things from a different lens and perspectives. And that's what makes a good company, is helping people make good decisions, even when bad ideas come into the fold. So I think when you're hearing or seeing or feeling that people are looking down on diverse ideas or thoughts, I wouldn't encourage continuing in that environment. So that's one piece of it. I think the other piece is when you yourself or you see others asking questions and not really getting answers that make sense. And I'll give you an example. Hey, I want to ask a question. I'm in marketing, and I want to ask a question about what we're doing about the engineering problem. We have a problem in engineering. The product, isn't going to be able to go anywhere until we rehash the code. What am I supposed to market, from the marketing perspective? If you get an answer from leadership, like, oh, just keep doing what you're doing and don't really allude to the fact that there's a problem, like something like that, where it's like, my red light bulb is like shining bright. A good answer that you want to hear from leadership is, hey, marketing person, let's go look under the hood with engineering. Let's look at what we're doing. Help us decide where should we actually put resources in engineering first to help you make that marketing message about what's coming down the pipeline in 3 months, 6 months, so we can help prepare you for when things are ready, when the product is at its peak, or when what can we get customers excited about. Let's have you take a look under the hood and collaborate with this function of the business, and then you guys come up with a cool solution, like something like that, where it allows like a lot of more transparency of things, not just like just keep what you're doing and keeps you siloed in your function. Like that's not like a great sign. And I think that the third thing is that you have a life outside of work, and you should really try and embrace that, because you are not doing any favors to your own business if all you're doing, as you have these blinders on, all of your, energy is 100% in work. You really need to take time for yourself, have conversations outside of work, go to a museum, go have different experiences, and come back to the organization and say, I have something else to say. Oh, here's what I heard outside of work. And here's what has sparked my creativity to bring into the fold. What do you think? And have like interesting conversations, because when you are going outside of your work and you're talking to people with different experiences, different perspectives, experiencing even on vacation. Oh, I went to, Italy, and this is what they had, and this was so cool. What could we do here that I liked, to see in my downtime? Like those are the types of rich conversations you want to be having. And if you're 100% dedicated to your work, and don't get me wrong, I'm totally guilty of this. Like I've worked 24/7 in my days for sure. But at the end of the day, a lot of that growing of myself and the business and my team comes from what do I do outside of work that I can contribute to work. And that also brings, a lot of diverse creativity and innovation perspective to work. So.
Oh, for sure. So this podcast is, outside of my day job. And the amount of times that I've brought up what people have said in this podcast, where I'm like, girl, let me tell you how wrong we are. We got schooled recently.
Yeah, I know.
This and this and this. And I thought I knew, all of this stuff. But actually, here's a whole bunch of other stuff that I didn't realize I knew. And here's some new thinking as well. But then again, you look at it from, the other perspective, and you look at it from the perspective of I do have a day job, and then I throw myself into all of the work that we do to get the podcast maintained and doing and editing and social media and all of the things that come with that. And it's like an avoidance tactic, right? Because you don't want to deal with like what's really going on, so you throw yourself into all of these other things. And this is going to sound terrible, another unpopular opinion for today, I struggle to relax ever, because the minute I start relaxing, I think about all the 47,000 other things that I need to be doing, and I feel like my time is so unproductive for relaxing.
I don't have that problem.
Oh,
I've really learned to train myself. And I think I've mentioned this before on the podcast, I used to feel intense pressure to respond to every single email, like super quick. And just recently, I've realized most people don't respond to emails as quickly as I am giving myself all of this internal pressure to respond. So I started testing the boundaries. I'd be like, I'm going to respond in like they emailed me at 10 a.m. I'm going to respond at like 2. And then I would push it back a little bit longer. And now I'm just like, I'm going with it. And it's really like it's an act of letting go, right? It's like, I can respond to them without that intense anxiety of, if I don't respond to them right now, they're never going to work with me again. It's like, that's really not how it works. They're doing tens of millions of other things. And yes, they need my information, but do they need it almost immediately? Probably not.
Yeah, I have seen that happen. And there's this like dependency on a leader's approval. There's this like manipulation of like, a leader can maybe like say or like put it out there in a way where it's like, if you don't respond immediately, like, where are you? What are you doing?
And that's where I came from. That's where that came from, is because if I didn't respond like within an hour, my old boss would be like, did you get this email? How come I haven't heard from you? So I learned to respond and say, received your email. I'm working on it. I'll get back to you. Like, I needed to validate this person's like sense of urgency. And while I think learning a sense of urgency, especially in the work that I do, because it is manufacturing, so there are often timelines that must be kept or else you're dead in the water. But that was one side of the coin, is learning that urgency is appropriate in certain situations, but not in every effing email. Like, give me a break. Like, I was expected to, Nicola, you can understand this. Like, we were in that position.
I was on 24/7.
Yeah. It's like, if I didn't respond within so now it's like that leftover like anxiety. And I haven't worked at that company in like 13, 14 years, but it had such a long-standing effect on me that now it's like 14 years later, I'm trying to undo what was done within like a year and a half of being at that company,
And that is the fear and guilt manipulation. If you don't respond, I'm going to be upset and you should feel guilty because you didn't respond. Like, I own you type of like mentality.
And I would have to explain why I didn't respond like within what she deemed as a norm. And half the time it was like, I didn't have the answer. I was gathering all the information to present it to you so that we can make an educated decision like together. And like, that was never good enough,
Yeah, that's like a desperate leader, honestly. Someone who just can't, will like only depend on like a few people in the company. And then you're like owned, Oh, if you're not loyal to me, or if you're not doing what I need you to do, that's disloyalty.
That was the big issue with me at the previous organization, is I was kind of the go-to person, and if someone else could solve it, I could solve it.
I mean, I've heard. Yeah, go ahead.
No, yours is way more important. Say it.
No, I was just saying that there's an experience that I know of where a woman was the right hand of her boss. She got pregnant, and her boss like totally just like was like, "You're nothing to me." Yeah.
And the
You
boss was
can't-
a woman, I bet, right?
She was a woman.
I knew it. Women,
Like,
and we had a whole
how does this happen?
we had
Did
a
she
whole
text
session
her
about
midway
this.
I mean, I
through
don't want to
the
be
labor?
like biased, but that she happened to be a woman.
No, we had an expert on here saying how women are our own worst enemies in the workplace. And I think there is, yeah, she said she has a book called Behind Frenemy Lines. And it's like we're doing a disservice to other women because we're like that. That's a whole different topic, I think.
That's a whole different topic.
Yeah.
But then also you
It's
think
like
about
a whole nother show.
yeah, but then you think about Taylor's situation where
Oh my
she had a
God,
woman
you have
boss
to tell
as well.
Felicia.
And then she was texting so we had someone on the podcast, and she was pushing out the baby. She was in active labor. The baby was coming. And her boss was like, could you get me this information? Congrats on the baby, BT dub.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was like, when you're done pushing out a baby, just let me know so-and-so's phone number. Congrats on having the baby, BTW. It was like so ridiculous. I was like, is this person for real? Like, is this an actual person who thought this was like socially acceptable to do this?
Are you a chatbot?
Yeah, I'm like, is this AI? Like, this is not real. Yeah, but I think we're digressing into like how women are sometimes our own worst enemies in corporate situations. But yeah, but I do think women are, and this is, I'm probably gonna get canceled for this. I think women are
Is this the show of being canceled? Should we just call this show canceled forever?
We're all canceled except for Felicia.
Yeah.
Gina and Nicola are canceled. I do think women tend to be more manipulative because that's how we're raised. And I do think that is something like we're less overt at being manipulative. It's a little more subtle, I feel like. And I feel like that's like, think of some of like these great like MLM leaders, right? You had I don't know her name, the LuLaRoe lady.
And her husband.
Right, but she was like the face of it. Gwen Shamlin, who I just can't believe that's an actual person based on the way she looks. I feel like it's a lizard wearing like a wig. And like, do you know who I'm talking about, Felicia? Gwen Shamlin?
I don't.
Oh my God.
You have to look at a picture of her. You're gonna.
I know. I feel like I'm like doing all the wrong things. I'm like, I'm so involved with work. I'm living under a rock. I should be canceled after I just shared everything that I just shared.
No, you shouldn't be canceled because this was a little bit more of, it had a more religious spin. So it wasn't really like, you know what I mean?
It
like
was
it wasn't
MLM-y.
real.
It was definitely MLM-y, and it was all about weight loss.
It was culty. It was
very culty, but it was you have to Google this woman because you need to see this woman's hair.
I have to.
Okay, hold on.
Okay,
You're gonna be like, I'm putting it in the chat just so.
You really can't, like, once you've seen it, you cannot unsee the lizard skin.
Do you see it, Felicia?
Let me see. Mm-hmm.
It's in the chat.
Oh my goodness.
Is that not a lizard wearing a huge wig and just a skin suit? That is Gwen Shamlin. She's dead now. And you shouldn't speak ill of the dead, but like, she was wild.
Oh,
wild.
You know, she's got her own thing going.
That's her brand. Her brand.
Yeah, it's working. You know, you shared her picture. It worked.
She's now dead, so we don't know how much she's working.
That's so true. It worked so good. You just shared her picture.
Exactly.
It's true.
Her marketing is on fire.
Wait, so should I make my hair even bigger when I take it out of its ponytail? Because I have like really curly hair. I was like, should I like make it? Should I have a white eyebrow?
Yeah. You know what? I learned
doing this.
I learned to trick it at Christmas time. Okay, just
the next
okay.
episode.
I feel like
this is my hair. It's so curly.
I feel like you and I, Felicia,
like a white
have
girl
got some similar length hair. So
mine's
if you get like a water bottle, like an empty water bottle, and then you put your hair
Tin
up
can.
in the water bottle. You can make
Or
like a
can.
Christmas tree with your water bottle. For
I'm thinking of that movie Hairspray.
Yes, with the cans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
girl,
Yeah.
look at that, look at this. Look at this. I'm like that thing from the Who Done It Grinch. Look at this.
Yes.
I am
The
just
Who's in
pure-
Whoville.
Please.
Okay,
this-
wait, but can we go back to why Gwen Shamblin is such a weird lizard person? No, I'm just kidding. That's not. But
Look, I'm just
by
pure
the way,
sex.
her husband was total like he used to be really hot. He played Tarzan in like some show. Okay, so I was talking about how I feel like women are more manipulative subtly, and that's why they make for better cult leaders.
Well, I don't know if it makes them a better cult leader, but I can say that historically, we've really had to fight our way through. And we're still kind of doing it to get the respect and the leveling. There's there's statistically speaking, there's absolutely more men on boards and executive teams than women, and that's that's fact. And I feel like sometimes we try to compensate for that. And so when we feel someone has like abandoned us, I'm not talking about myself, but I'm just saying sometimes women feel like someone's abandoned us, we have to fight even harder, like tooth and nail, to get the respect or like the leadership title, position, compensation level, all of that, in order to get there. And so when someone leaves us or we can't rely on them anymore for whatever reason, it hurts maybe a little bit, maybe it stings a little bit more than it would be like a male. And again, I think that there's plenty of men out there that would feel the same way. It's not just women. I'm just saying that like our history in the workplace has been a little bit more of a struggle than men. So, I think, again, it's really just, I hear what you're saying, like the manipulation might be a little bit deeper. But at the end of the day, we are also, as women, often looked at as more socially aware, and we might leverage those social or interpersonally savvy strengths, competencies, and skill sets to get to where we, what we need or where we need to be. So in that sense, maybe more likely to leverage those social relationships more than men in the workplace.
Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah, but don't quote me on all of that. I'm just making assumptions.
We're just spitballing. We're just having an open conversation. Yeah. No, because historically, if you look back, most cult leaders are men, right? So maybe it's a women's turn to become cult leaders. Should we
probably would be more successful.
That's what I'm saying. I feel like we would be super good at it because like we have the ability to leverage different things than men do. Although I think men are inherently trusted because like, especially in America, that's like what we've been brought up to, like men are the ones, like all of our presidents have been men, right? It's like we're more likely to look up to and trust in an authoritative position a man, right? And like a woman, it's like, oh, who did she have to sleep with to get to that position? Like, there's that whole like undercurrent that happens, but maybe it is time for women to become cult leaders. I say go for it. Let's see what happens.
Well, I want to officially discourage any cult leadership. On the show.
This is tongue in cheek. We don't want anyone.
I would like to start a cult, and
who wants to join?
I'm going to start a cult, but it's going to be let's go with a coffee tasting cult, and we become obsessed with coffee.
I think
okay,
that
now
exists.
you have to give us some false promises.
I also think though that Starbucks,
that you will find a coffee that you love.
and you'll have freedom to have access to that coffee all the time.
All the
Again,
time.
I think
And
it's
you know what
Starbucks.
else is, if you get more people involved eventually, because it's going to be the zombie apocalypse soon, because you know, you got to have, so, and we've been watching how to create a cult leader. We need an apocalypse. So because there needs to be a zombie apocalypse soon, we can use the coffee as a medium to take us to the zombies.
Right.
Okay, I think okay. I'm not.
And I am so fun to hang out with,
hordes of coffee because the apocalypse is coming, and then there will be new planet land, and without
you can bring all your best coffee. Right.
And we need
you
to hoard
bring
it
with you.
We need to hoard it. And so obviously hoard as much coffee as you can, my coffee cult
followers,
lovers.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm the worst cult leader. I'm the terrible cult leader, guys.
Okay, so I think I would be an amazing cult leader, honestly, because I think my pitch would be, wait, are we doing the coffee pitch or should we do something else?
You go with whatever you're pitching, because
I'm gonna pitch the coffee cult, because
okay.
I'm going to see if I can do it in a better way. So like everybody loves coffee, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up this cool exclusive club, and only certain people can get into it. And in order to get into it, you have to purchase the coffee from me. And after you purchase it, you then have to sign your loyalty to me and my ideas, because I'm the only one who knows how to get this specialty coffee for everyone.
Yeah. Wow, that was really good. I'm like ready to join.
You're way better at this than I am. I'll do the marketing.
You could do the marketing. I have the weird ability to make people my friends immediately. And I think I don't do it only in work situations. Like, because personally, I'm like, everyone leave me the fuck alone. I just want to stay here and binge Married at First Sight. Leave me alone. But like, when in work scenarios, I'm like the first one to tell like a funny little anecdote to make people like warm up to me, you know? So I'm probably a good salesperson, even though I hate doing sales, which is why I think I'd be a great cult leader.
Well, you definitely, have the knowledge now. I mean, even before. So, I mean,
I think you've refined my knowledge to be an even better cult leader.
I've given you some
pointers.
I have flags. I have flags in the book.
Cult status.
You guys should be interviewing each other. What do you need me
here for?
You guys know this. You guys are like,
we're one step away from starting our own coffee cults, and you'll be our first. Yeah,
you're gonna be having like bags of coffee delivered to your house, and you're gonna be trying to like feverishly sell this coffee. We're not gonna do well with the Mormons though. Having been in Utah for a little while, I don't feel like that's not the area we need to pitch at.
Why?
Because they don't drink coffee.
What in the hell? Why did I never put that together before?
The Mormons, they don't drink the coffee.
Yeah, no, you're right. I did know that, but I didn't think about it.
Girl,
this is why.
Do you know how hard it was for me to find coffee at like
in Utah? Yeah, you're probably right. Felicia, I have a question. And you might not know the answer. Why are Mormons so fucking good at creating products and being so successful?
Oh my God, they're so good at it.
I don't know what it is.
Oh,
but
they are so good.
Every single Mormon is some type of business owner or high up in some kind of CPG company, or I don't know, why? What is it that makes them that way?
I think it's okay. I'm just going to throw it out there. Having hung out with the Mormons in Utah for a little while. I say a little while. It was like a week. So obviously I'm an expert. I am going to throw it out there, and I'm going to say that they have got a really tight-knit network and community. And I think
it's large.
It's a large network and a large community, but it's tight-knit, right? And everybody knows everybody who knows everybody, and you will know someone else in someone else's network through the community. It's 2 degrees of separation. And I think what happens is you have these really innovative ideas coming in, You know, someone finds like a niche product or whatever it is, and then they test it out on, let's say, a smaller community. It works really well and then blows up because boom, you've got this massive network of people to tap into.
Well, I think, okay, then we're going to let the expert tell us, but my feeling is they already have a built-in like buyer.
Groupthink.
Right. It's like they're, because like, oh, so and so who I know is starting this skincare line, I'm going to support them and give them and buy from them, and then before you know it, the company is showing revenue, which then can, you know, once a company is showing revenue and showing growth, you can really take it anywhere. But that growth might not be totally organic because the community is so tight knit. Are we wrong or are we right? Last question of the podcast.
I think that you have a good assumption of what it could be. I think it's a good educated guess, but I would not be able to tell you yes or no.
We need to get Taylor back on the episode. We can ask her.
Because I'm always like astounded at how many companies, I'm like, I had no idea they were based in Salt Lake City. And the majority of them, just because you're in Salt Lake City doesn't mean you're owned and operated by Mormons, but it's a high likelihood, right? So I'm always like
going back to stationery. One of the biggest stationery brands is based in Utah, and they're huge.
Right. So it's like, yeah, and it's like, what are they doing that's so different? I would love to know. I would love some personal question. I would love to know.
That's the next episode.
We got to find someone.
Have to find someone who's successful Mormon in Utah. I actually might know someone.
Oh, but please tell us.
Oh, Connection 101.
No, if you want to like approach them and then say like, hey, we're looking, like, I know I just did a podcast. We're looking for someone. We would love to have a candid conversation. Yeah. About
I will check my network for you girls. I will. But again, like, you know, I think what draws people, healthy organization, unhealthy organization, MLM, all across the spectrum, it's going to be values. That's just what draws people. Do you have the same values as I do? I believe you. I trust you. I respect you. I want to be in your world. You know, Mormons, they have values, you know, they're very strong, and they're going to bring people who have the same values, you know, into their fold. And they know a lot of people who have similar values, you know, so to your point.
I love that.
I feel like LuLaRoe was Mormon based as well.
Oh, I don't know about that.
But I'm pretty confident it was.
Was it? But I keep thinking of the Real Housewife of Utah. She owns the Beauty Lab and Laser. It's like a huge name now, and she started it in Utah. Now it's like everywhere, and also like Dime Beauty, like all of these crazy companies. And you're like, I had no idea that it goes back to Utah and are likely Mormon owned. And it's like, yeah, I would love to know what their secret is because I want to replicate it.
I would love to know too.
Okay, hold on.
Yeah, because then we could just replicate it.
Right, hold on, girls.
Okay. Yes.
On the Washington Post, there is an article called The Allure of Companies Like LuLaRoe to Latter-day Saint Women, the hidden link between the history of Mormon woman and colorful leggings. It is. Okay, so Lula Rich features woman, yada, yada, yada. She isn't overtly religious. However, it's all about leggings, as we know with LuLaRoe. She tapped into the culture of Latter-day Saints to build her power. Yada, 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 blah, 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 blah. So she's quoting a lot of the values from the Book of Mormon in this space. Often in insular communities, sometimes growing, so converts of a particular product gathered together and build community, often in insular communities, sometimes growing at an alarming rate in the eyes of others nearby. And because they're tight-knit and they live in the same communities, it's easy to share, kind of like catches on like wildfire. Home industry, selling straw hats, oil clothes, homespun material became a significant part of the economy in Utah, helping the LDS community become independent from outside influences in the latter half of the 19th century.
I just want to point everyone to what the LuLaRoe trick looks like. And you and I are doing something very wrong if we want to be MLM leaders, because we need some wild kind of hair and some feral look in our eyes. And I don't think we naturally have that.
Founded in 2013, LuLaRoe was built on the ideas of LDS and the centered focus on family to its identity in its public materials. If you want to create an incredible wealth identity and underutilized, identify an underutilized resource. And if you make that choice, you're penalized, and okay, yada yada yada.
Okay,
so essentially they're using the community.
Yeah, and I think
it goes back centuries.
But I also think that when used properly, like with some of the companies I've named, it catches on like wildfire, and then it just goes. It's like natural marketing, right? It's like marketing within that community, and then those people probably have friends outside, and it's just like old-fashioned word of mouth. Okay, well, we have taken up 7 more minutes than we told you we would.
And I feel terrible that we've taken up your time with absolute trash talk.
Yeah, we've just been like being like, can I be a call leader? Can you be a call leader? Who's going to be the best call leader?
We all have the tools now to be an effective
Okay, hold on. Felicia, okay, what is your cult plan for the coffee shop?
Oh my gosh. Well, I think what I would do is make everyone feel super special by, having very special beans for my coffee. And I would tell them that, and I would promise them like unicorn capabilities if they drank my coffee. And then I would get them all together in one pot. And I would just, take them to like an unknown location for 3 days. And I would tell them, all of you are ready to be unicorns. And if anybody tells you otherwise, cut them out, because they just are jealous of you. And then I would tell them that the good thing to do in life is to get other people become unicorns too. And that's
isn't it amazing to be a unicorn? And you're almost there. You're almost there.
Everyone how beautiful, your ponytail is, your rainbow ponytail.
Yes.
All right, we really need to up our hair game.
Yeah, we have been schooled. You're going to be the resident cult leader.
Unicorn cult leader.
Coffee. Yes. Coffee unicorn cult leader. But can you tell people where, if they want to join your unicorn cult coffee, if they want to actually learn how to
join our cult today.
Yes. If you
tell us where we can find you
in my coffee unicorn adventure, you can go to CPO Playbook.com. We also have a podcast, CPO Playbook. We're very serious on my podcast. Unfortunately, it's not as glamorous as this one, of course, but we talk about real subjects. And this is a real subject that we've been talking about today, but we talk about—
Wait a second. Have we been talking about made-up subjects?
No, not made
up.
Towards
the end, yes.
Totally
towards the end.
It's all real.
No, in summary, what you're saying is you're more professional.
Now I have to rewind.
No, you're fine.
There you go. So
I think it's
what we talk about what's happening today. So I interview, chief people officers and leaders who are actually having challenges in their world today, and they actually solve the problem. So every episode is like a problem that we solve. We talk, I interview them and the problems that they're having today, and we try and solve them in an organization. So it's really fun and exciting, and I'm enjoying it so far, and I hope you guys listen. So
we will.
Yeah.
Okay, and are you on LinkedIn, Instagram? Tell everyone where we can find you.
I am on LinkedIn all the time. I am on there, and I have not yet set up my amazing I haven't set up my Instagram to show my coffee yet, but I'm going to show my coffee soon. I'm just making sure I have all of the rainbow colors together.
Okay. So stay tuned for your invite to the Rainbow Unicorn Coffee Cult.
You know what? I'll be marketing. I will come up with a better name for your cult.
Thank you. I'm thinking about adding glitter too. but we'll save it.
Oh, for sure. That goes without
Yeah.
saying. I think it's just assumed. And if you don't assume it, then you can't be a unicorn.
Oh,
Exactly. You can only get special glitter from me. That's it.
And only Felicia has that special
can you
glitter.
imagine like a glitter coffee?
Gross.
No, like edible glitter, you
Kind of
doofus.
fun.
It's still
There's
gross.
a
I
glitter
wouldn't-
pizza in my neighborhood.
Oh my God, it would
do
be
you
so
eat it?
sparkly. Oh my God, I would do
Yeah,
it.
but
Can you
your
imagine
mouth
us-
like gets
and then
like
you poop,
glittered and
and then
colored.
you poop out glitter. Come on.
But what does it taste like? Doesn't it taste
edible
It
glitter
plastic?
doesn't
taste
taste
like
anything
anything.
different. It just looks
okay.
pretty, and then it gets like really messy. Kind of like a cult. Looks pretty, but can get really messy.
I love it. That
I
was
love
so
it.
good. All right,
Question.
Felicia,
Okay.
it was so much fun talking to you. Thank you for indulging our weird tangents and sidetracks.
Oh my God. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Let's Break Up, Toxic Workplace Stories. If you enjoyed our candid conversations and insights, don't forget to hit that like button, follow us on social media, and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform.